You haven't cried in years, have you? Not at funerals, not at movies, not even when something inside you clearly broke. Other people fall apart over a sad song or a wedding speech, and you just sit there, calm, composed, almost untouched. And at some point, you probably wondered, is something wrong with me? Here's what no one tells you. The people who cry the least are often the ones carrying the most. They're not cold. They're not heartless. They're not strong in the way the world defines strength either. What looks like emotional emptiness is often emotional compression, a sealed container under pressure. And pressure doesn't disappear. It builds. Today, we're going inside the minds of people who almost never cry and what's actually happening beneath that controlled surface. What crying actually is. Before we talk about people who don't cry, we need to understand what crying does. Humans are one of the only species that cry for emotional reasons. Emotional tears aren't random. They serve a purpose. They signal vulnerability. They invite connection. They help regulate stress by releasing hormones like cortisol. Crying is your nervous system's pressure release valve. So when someone rarely cries, the real question isn't, why are they so cold? It's this, where is all that pressure going? Because it doesn't vanish, it converts. The 4 types of people who almost never cry. Psychologists tend to see 4 patterns among people who almost never cry, and they are very different from each other. 1. The suppressor. This person feels deeply, maybe even overwhelmingly, but somewhere in childhood, they learned one thing. Crying isn't safe. Maybe emotions were mocked, ignored, punished. So the brain adapted. It shut the valve before it could open. Over time, that becomes automatic, not weakness, adaptation, often tied to avoidant attachment styles formed early in life. 2. The alexithymic. This one is more subtle. Alexithymia is a trait where someone struggles to identify and describe their own emotions. They're not suppressing feelings on purpose. They genuinely don't know what they're feeling. The body reacts, tight chest, heavy throat, restless energy, but the mind never labels it as sadness. And if you can't name the emotion, you can't release it. 3. The highly controlled. These are the composed ones, the high performers, the stoic personalities, the ones who pride themselves on staying calm in chaos. For them, emotional control isn't just a habit, it's identity. Crying would feel like losing control, and losing control would feel like losing themselves. 4. The exhausted. This one is the quietest. When someone has endured prolonged stress, trauma, or burnout, the nervous system can go numb, not because they don't feel, but because they've felt too much for too long. Eventually, the system dulls itself to survive. Not empty, just depleted. What happens to the emotion? Here's what all 4 types have in common. The emotion doesn't disappear, it transforms. Unexpressed sadness often becomes irritability, or constant tension in the body, or chronic fatigue, or obsessive productivity. Emotional suppression studies show something interesting. Even when someone appears calm, their physiological stress levels can stay elevated. Higher heart rate, higher cortisol. The body keeps the score. Looking stoic is not the same as being at peace. Is not crying a problem? Now here's the part people oversimplify. Not crying isn't automatically unhealthy. Some people genuinely regulate emotions well. They process through conversation, reflection, movement. That's healthy. The real question is this: is your calmness peace or protection? Is it regulation or a wall? Because emotional strength isn't the absence of tears. It's the ability to feel without being ruled by what you feel. If you saw yourself in one of these types, don't judge it. That pattern protected you once. It made sense at some point in your life. But protection can quietly turn into isolation. The most interesting thing about people who never cry isn't that they feel nothing. It's how much they've learned to carry alone. And that weight? It always asks to be acknowledged, one way or another.